There's one hidden cause of suffering that most people never notice. It is the quiet way a thought sneaks into your mind and refuses to leave, wrapping itself around your awareness like vines climbing an old stone wall. You might be sitting at your desk, walking in the park, or trying to fall asleep at night, and suddenly their face appears again. The same memories, the same feelings, the same sharp pull in your chest. No matter how much time has passed, no matter how much you tell yourself to move on, they remain like a shadow you cannot shake. This haunting presence can feel unbearable, as though your mind itself has become a prison. And yet, within this very suffering lies the doorway to freedom, a doorway that Zen Buddhism has illuminated for centuries. Today, I will guide you through that doorway step by step until the heavy grip of obsessive thoughts begins to loosen. The first reason someone stays lodged in your thoughts is attachment disguised as love. At first glance, it seems natural. You miss them. You long for their presence. Perhaps you tell yourself that the reason you cannot stop thinking about them is because what you feel is true love. But Buddhism teaches us to look more closely, to pierce through the illusion. True love is spacious. It allows freedom. It breathes peace into your heart. Attachment, on the other hand, clings tightly, suffocates, and breeds turbulence. If your thoughts about this person bring constant anxiety, if they ignite jealousy, or push you to check their life through endless scrolling, what you are experiencing is not the calm of love, but the storm of attachment. Attachment is one of the Buddha's clearest teachings. It is said to be the root of suffering itself. To illustrate this, imagine holding a piece of burning coal in your hand. You intend to throw it at someone, but while you wait, your skin is scorched and your flesh is burned. This is the cost of attachment. You think the coal belongs to someone else, that they are the source of the pain. But in truth, you are the one being consumed. If the presence of this person in your mind feels more like fire than light, it is not love, it is attachment disguised in sweet clothing. To understand this more deeply, look at the texture of your thoughts. When they arise, is there a craving hidden beneath them? Do you feel a fear of losing something, a desperate need for validation, or a hunger for what once was? These feelings are not the gentle currents of love, but the stormy waves of clinging. They tie your happiness to another's response. They make your peace conditional on something beyond your control. This is why attachment is so painful. It ties your very sense of self to something impermanent. Zen masters often use stories to reveal truth. One such story tells of a man who loved a beautiful cup. He held it with pride, admired its curves, its shine, its delicate design. He would not let it out of his sight. But one day, the cup slipped from his hands and shattered on the ground. His grief was immense, as though he had lost a part of his body. Later, a monk asked him, "Did you ever believe the cup would last forever? Did you not know it was fragile from the beginning?" The man was silent. In that silence, he saw the truth. His suffering did not come from the broken cup, but from the belief that it would never break. The same is true in relationships. It is not the person who binds your thoughts, but the illusion that they will complete you, the illusion that their presence defines your worth. Zen offers us a path out of this trap through the practice of loving kindness, known as metta. This is not the grasping kind of love that says, "You must stay with me, or I cannot be whole." Instead, it is the open-handed love that says, "May you be happy, may you find peace. Whether near or far, whether with me or not, may you be free." When you begin to practice loving kindness, the grip of attachment weakens. You still care, but you no longer burn. You still love, but you no longer cling. Imagine sending this kind of love not just to them, but also to yourself. When the thought of them arises, instead of fueling the fire of craving, Pause and breathe. Say silently, "May I be free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. May we both find peace." Slowly, the walls of your mental prison begin to soften. The endless cycle of obsessive thought loses its power because it is no longer fed by grasping. You are not denying your feelings. You are transforming them into something wiser, something that heals. And yet, even as you practice letting go of attachment, you might notice something deeper at play. Perhaps despite all efforts, they return again and again, like a song that refuses to leave your ears. This is where the second reason reveals itself: unresolved karma. When we hear the word karma, many think of punishment or reward, as if some cosmic judge were keeping score. But Buddhism does not teach it this way. Karma means action, and it's ripple. It means unfinished energy, unresolved lessons, unprocessed emotions that seek completion. When someone occupies your thoughts persistently, it may not be about present attachment alone. It may be about something unfinished between you. Perhaps they hurt you, and you never allowed yourself to fully feel that pain. Perhaps you hurt them, and guilt lingers like a shadow beneath your awareness. Or perhaps they represented something vital, a lesson your soul has not yet integrated. In these cases, their constant presence in your mind is like an alarm bell. It calls for attention. It says, "There is something here you have not yet faced." Think of it like a magnet. Until the lesson is learned or the emotion is processed, the magnet continues to pull. You may move cities, delete numbers, block profiles, yet the magnet remains because it is not outside you, it is within. This is why certain people follow us in dreams, in memories, in sudden flashes of emotion. They are our teachers, though, often not in the way we would choose. The Buddha once said, "If you meet someone who awakens anger in you, bow to them. They are your teacher." The same is true for those who awaken longing, fear, or sadness. They hold up a mirror to what within us still seeks healing. And until that healing is given, the mind circles back to them again and again. Not so. When you find yourself haunted, ask gently, "What lesson am I avoiding? What emotion remains unacknowledged? What truth about myself am I refusing to see?" Often, the answer is painful, but within that pain is the seed of liberation. To acknowledge what was denied, to feel what was repressed, to forgive what was left unfinished, these acts loosen the karmic knot. In this way, the persistent thought is not your enemy. It is your invitation. It is pointing toward the very place where your freedom lies. You may not be able to silence the thought by force, but you can listen to it, learn from it, and in time, release it. And when you begin to see this, you realize that the people who remain in your mind are not obstacles on your path. They are the path. They are the very stepping stones your soul has laid for its own awakening. The suffering you feel is not meaningless. It is the call of unfinished business, the whisper of karma saying, "Come closer, there is something here for you to see." But the journey does not end there. Sometimes, what haunts us most is not simply attachment or unfinished karma, but something even subtler, the reflection of our own hidden self. And this is where the third reason emerges, a reason that may shock you, the projection of the shadow. Self. You might wonder, why is it that certain people live in our thoughts while others fade quickly? Why do we replay some conversations endlessly while forgetting others within hours? Zen Buddhism, much like modern psychology, teaches that often the people we cannot forget are mirrors of ourselves. They embody qualities we deny, repress, or fear within. If you find yourself endlessly thinking about their confidence, perhaps it is because you have disowned your own. If their cruelty or selfishness lingers in your mind, it may be reflecting qualities you do not wish to see in yourself. This projection creates a powerful hook, binding you to them, Because your mind is not just thinking about them, it is secretly thinking about you. They become the screen upon which the movie of your unconscious plays. Zen practice asks us to turn inward at these moments, to ask, what in them unsettles me? What in them draws me? What quality do they carry that I cannot yet accept in myself? The answers to these questions often reveal the shadow self, the parts of us that remain hidden in darkness. When you reclaim these shadows, their power dissolves. Suddenly, the person who haunted your mind becomes less of a mystery and more of a mirror. The endless pull weakens, because the true source of the tension was never them, it was the disowned parts of yourself longing to be seen. This is the hidden wisdom of obsession. It points not outward, but inward. It asks you to see yourself more fully, to embrace the parts you would rather deny. And when you do, something miraculous happens. The person who once seemed larger than life shrinks back into proportion. They become just another human being, no longer a symbol of everything you lack or fear. The prison door opens, and you realize it was never locked. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, are you holding on to something that's destroying you? The worst part about chasing the thought of someone is realizing it never fills the emptiness inside. You tell yourself that if you could only have their apology, their return, their recognition, the restless ache would finally dissolve. Yet, the more you chase it, the more hollow you feel. This is the trap of attachment to outcome, the fourth reason your mind becomes enslaved to a single person. Zen Buddhism explains that suffering is not born from life itself, but from clinging to what we wish life would be. You imagine the reunion that will heal you, the conversation that will finally bring closure, or the triumph that will prove your worth. And so your mind loops endlessly through rehearsed scenarios. You walk into the same imagined room 1,000 times, speak the same words, see the same expressions. But reality never matches the fantasy, and so the cycle continues. Beginner's mind, a cherished Zen teaching, is the opposite of this fixation. It asks us to meet each moment as if for the very first time, without expectation, without rehearsed outcomes. But when one person dominates your thoughts, you find yourself trapped in a cluttered mind, one filled with predictions and cravings for what should happen. You can recognize this state when your thoughts always lead to the same story. Perhaps the fantasy of reconciliation, perhaps the dream of revenge, perhaps the hope of recognition. Each story tightens the knot of suffering because it chains your peace to an imagined future. Imagine you are holding a rope tied to a heavy cart. You pull and pull, hoping the cart will move, but it never does. Instead, you exhaust yourself. This is the nature of attachment to outcome. The cart is beyond your control, yet you tie your worth to moving it. Only when you drop the rope do you discover you are free to walk in any direction. The Buddhist path asks not for indifference, but for courage to let go of outcomes and rest in the reality of now. In this resting, your mind softens, and the person who once consumed every corner of thought begins to lose their hold. Still, even when you loosen the rope of outcome, the mind has a subtler trap waiting. It convinces you that every thought of them is truth itself, that every image, every memory, every whisper is who you are. This brings us to the fifth reason, identification with thoughts. One of Buddhism's most liberating insights is this: you are not your thoughts. They pass like clouds across the sky, yet you mistake them for the sky itself. When a thought of this person arises, you grab it, cradle it, magnify it, and then believe it defines you. I miss them becomes not just a passing flicker, but a declaration of truth. I need them becomes the law of your inner world. In Zen meditation, practitioners are taught to watch thoughts arise and dissolve without clinging. The mind is like a river, and thoughts are the currents. If you fall in, the current carries you far downstream, sometimes into dangerous waters. But if you remain on the shore, you see the water pass by without being swept away. When you think, "They do not love me," try instead to see it as, "There is a thought of being unloved." This small shift creates distance. It allows you to see the thought as what it is, an event, not a destiny. This practice of gentle observation does not erase the thought immediately, but it weakens its power. It is like stepping out of a storm into a quiet room. The storm still rages outside, but you are no longer drenched by the rain. The person in your mind may appear again and again, but each time you notice, there is that thought, you build a little more space. And in that space, freedom grows. Yet even as you practice observing, another illusion lingers. It is the illusion that the intensity of these thoughts will last forever, that you will never be free of their weight. This is the sixth reason, the illusion of permanence. Buddhism teaches impermanence as the law of life. Everything changes: seasons, bodies, emotions, memories. Yet when pain or longing overtakes us, we believe it is permanent. We think the ache will never ease, the memory will never fade, the person will always matter with such sharpness. This belief magnifies the suffering. Consider how waves crash upon the shore. Each one seems powerful, endless, but none lasts. They rise, they break, they fade back into the sea. Thoughts are the same. Feelings are the same. The face that invades your mind today with unbearable intensity will one day be a faint echo. The sting of betrayal, the sweetness of nostalgia, none can resist the law of change. To see this truth is to loosen the chains of obsession. A thought will not last forever, and when you realize this, you stop feeding it with fear. Zen monks often remind students, this too will change. They do not say it as comfort, but as reality. Everything you now cling to, every face that feels unforgettable, is subject to change. When you understand this, you no longer give the thought the power of eternity. You see it as a passing visitor. And what is a visitor but someone who eventually leaves? Yet there is one final reason, perhaps the most profound, that explains why someone remains in your thoughts like a ghost that refuses to leave. Buddhism calls it spiritual assignment. From this view, people are not random. They appear in your life as partners in growth, as mirrors for awakening. When someone persists in your consciousness despite time, distance, and effort, it may be because your soul has unfinished work with them. Not punishment, not fate in the ordinary sense, but an agreement deeper than memory. Perhaps they arrived to teach you compassion. Perhaps they stirred your deepest wounds so that healing could finally occur. Perhaps they represent a doorway to a higher awareness that you have not yet walked through. In this way, their haunting presence is not a curse, but a calling. Instead of asking, how can I stop thinking about them? Zen invites you to ask, what awakening do they point me toward? This shift transforms suffering into opportunity. The thought is no longer a prison, but a path. In Buddhist teachings, the most painful relationships often hide the greatest treasures of growth. The person who wounds you may be the one who pushes you toward forgiveness. The person you crave may be the one who teaches you non-attachment. The person you cannot forget may be the one who shows you the depth of your own heart. When you see them not as tormentors, but as assignments, your suffering transforms. They no longer linger in your mind as obstacles, but as guides, strange and unchosen, yet necessary. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. Your pain, too, can turn into light. And to reach that light, Buddhism offers a practical path, a way out of the restless prison of thought. The way out begins not with force, but with presence. First, you practice mindful observation. When thoughts of them appear, do not fight. Do not curse yourself. Watch them as you would leaves drifting along a stream. They float past, and you remain on the bank. Second, you investigate with compassion. Ask, what binds me to this thought? what lesson remains? Approach yourself with gentleness, not judgment. Wisdom is born not of harshness, but of curiosity. Third, you practice letting go not by pushing away, but by opening your hand. The Zen way teaches that letting go is not an act of force, but of release. When you stop clinging, the thought falls away on its own. Fourth, you redirect with intention. Each thought becomes a bell of mindfulness, reminding you to return to the present. Breathe. Feel your feet on the ground. Come back to now. Slowly, the ghost in your mind becomes less of a captor and more of a guide, pointing you back to presence. Fifth, you practice loving kindness meditation. Begin with yourself. May I be free from suffering. May I find peace. Extend it to them. May they be free. May they find peace. Then extend it to all beings. This dissolves the charge, transforming grasping and aversion into compassion. Finally, remember the Zen image of the stone in the river. At first, the stone causes turbulence. The water crashes, the current swirls. But in time, the river flows on. Either the stone settles into the riverbed, becoming part of the whole, or it is carried away. The key is to keep the river flowing. Do not dam it up with resistance. Allow thoughts to come and go, and in time they lose their sharpness. You are the sky. They are but a cloud. The cloud may darken, may linger, but it will never be greater than the sky itself. When you learn not to cling, the cloud passes, and the vastness of your true nature is revealed. So when someone refuses to leave your thoughts, see it not as torment, but as a teacher. Attachment, karma, shadow, outcome, identification, permanence. Assignment each reveals something vital. Each points toward awakening. And as you walk this path, step by step, you will discover that the very mind that once imprisoned, you can become the gate to your freedom. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, are you holding on to something that's destroying you? Or are you ready to let the river flow, the clouds drift, the lesson be learned? When I was a child, I watched my father lose everything he worked for. His business collapsed, his friends vanished, and even his health began to fail. But what I remember most vividly was not the loss itself. It was the way he carried it in his mind. Every day, I saw him replay the same betrayals, the same mistakes, the same faces of those who had abandoned him. It was as if he lived more in those memories than in the present moment. Even years later, even when life had given him new opportunities, he could not release those ghosts. They lived inside him, tormenting him far more than the collapse itself ever had. Watching him, I began to understand that the true suffering is not what happens to us, but how we carry it in our minds long after it is gone. This is why Zen Buddhism places such emphasis on the art of release. Life will bring pain. There is no avoiding that. But suffering multiplies when we cling, when we feed the fire of memory with the fuel of thought. The colleague whose cruel words echo in your head, the ex whose presence floods your dreams, the friend who betrayed you. They hurt you once in reality, but they hurt you 1,000 times more in thought. And this is the prison we build for ourselves. The walls reinforced each time we replay what was said, what was lost, what was denied. Zen does not ask you to pretend the hurt never happened. It asks you to see clearly what is happening now. When a thought arises, it is not the event itself. It is a shadow, a reflection, a ripple. You are free to watch it without being bound to it. This practice of awareness is like learning to distinguish between thunder and the echo of thunder. The thunder may startle you once, but the echo need not keep startling you again and again. Many people fear that letting go means forgetting, or that it means allowing injustice to stand unchallenged. But in Buddhism, letting go does not erase the truth. It does not condone harm. It simply releases the grip the memory has on your soul. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone is a memory, a regret, a betrayal. If you set the backpack down, the stones do not vanish, but you are no longer bent under their weight. Letting go means walking forward lighter, freer, no longer chained to the past. One practice Zen offers for this is called noting. When a thought of that person appears, instead of wrestling with it, you softly say to yourself, thinking. Thinking. This simple act of naming prevents the thought from becoming a drama. You no longer say, I am broken because of them, but instead, there is a thought of brokenness. In that subtle shift, the mind loosens its knot. The thought is acknowledged, but not empowered. It is seen, but not worshipped. Slowly, the spell breaks, yet the mind resists this simplicity. It craves stories. It wants to explain, to analyze, to control. You may find yourself asking, why did they do this to me? What did I do wrong? What if things had been different? These questions spin endlessly, but they never bring peace. They are like spinning a wheel with no destination. Buddhism calls this samsara, the endless cycle of suffering. The only way out is to step off the wheel, not to step off. You must accept what is unchangeable. The past cannot be rewritten. The person may never apologize, may never return, may never recognize what they did. But your freedom does not depend on them. It depends on your willingness to release the rope of control. Acceptance is not passive. It is powerful. It is the act of saying, this is what has happened. This is what is. And I will no longer resist it. In that acceptance, the thought loses its claws. It becomes softer, less sharp, like a wave that breaks gently on the shore instead of crashing with violence. And once you begin to accept, you find the space to redirect. Each time the person enters your mind, you use it as a bell of mindfulness. You breathe. You notice your body. You come back to the present. The very thought that once imprisoned you becomes the key to presence. Instead of fighting it, you transform it into a teacher. This is one of Buddhism's greatest secrets. Your obstacles can become your path. Still, some thoughts cling not because of love, or karma, or shadow, or even outcome. They cling because they carry emotions so raw that you have never allowed yourself to fully feel it. Anger, grief, shame, desire. These emotions are like children knocking at the door, but you keep locking them out. And so they return louder, stronger, more insistent. Zen invites you to open the door, to sit with them, to listen, to feel without being consumed. When you do, their power softens. The child stops knocking once it is welcomed. This is why compassion is essential. Not only compassion for the person, but compassion for yourself. So often, you berate yourself for not getting over it, for still thinking about them after so much time. But harshness only deepens the wound. Imagine trying to heal a cut by stabbing it again and again. It will never close. Instead, you must treat it with tenderness. Say to yourself, it is okay. This is a thought. This is pain. May I be kind to myself as I walk through it. Compassion heals where judgment cannot. And here lies another paradox of Zen. The harder you try to force the person out of your mind, the more they return. What you resist persists, but what you observe with gentle awareness begins to fade naturally. It is like holding a ball underwater. Your arms grow tired. The ball eventually bursts upward. But if you simply let it float, it drifts calmly on the surface until it is carried away. The same is true of these thoughts. Some may ask, but what if they never leave? What if this person is meant to stay in my mind forever? Zen answers, not with denial, but with perspective. Even if the thought arises for years, it need not harm you. It can be like a bird passing across the sky. You notice it, you hear its song, but the sky remains vast, untouched. You are the sky. The thought is the bird. The presence of the bird does not diminish the sky's immensity. This realization is liberation. You do not need to erase every thought. You do not need to win a war against your mind. You need only to see that you are larger than the thought, that your awareness is wider than any single memory. Once you see this, even the most persistent face loses its grip. It becomes one cloud among countless others, floating freely, never binding the sky. People say anger makes you strong. I say it makes you weaker than ever. Pause for a moment. Imagine you are standing in a crowded marketplace. Noise everywhere, voices shouting, vendors calling, footsteps pounding, the smell of spices in the air. In the middle of this chaos, someone bumps into you, spills your basket, and does not even apologize. Your anger flares instantly. You replay the insult, the disrespect, over and over in your mind. Long after you leave the market, the echo of that moment clings to you. This is the nature of anger. It enters quickly, burns fiercely, and refuses to leave. And when it is tied to a specific person, someone who betrayed you, hurt you, or abandoned you, it becomes even stronger. They take up residence in your mind, not because you choose it, but because anger has welded their image into your consciousness. Zen Buddhism speaks clearly on this. Anger is not strength, it is weakness. It drains your energy, distorts your clarity, and binds you to the very person you wish to escape. Imagine drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. That is anger. You rehearse arguments in your head, you picture confrontations, you even dream of revenge. But each thought is a sip of poison, corroding your peace from the inside. The Buddha compared anger to holding a torch against the wind you intend to burn someone else, but in truth, you are burning yourself. This is why forgiveness is not for them, it is for you. Many resist forgiveness because they believe it excuses the wrong. But forgiveness in Buddhism is not about saying what happened was acceptable. It is about refusing to let it consume your mind any longer. It is about laying down the torch before it burns you alive. One Zen master told the story of two monks traveling together. They came to a river where a woman stood, unable to cross. One monk immediately lifted her onto his shoulders and carried her across. Hours later, as the monks walked in silence, the other monk burst out, "How could you do that? We monks are not supposed to touch women." The first monk simply replied, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This is anger. This is resentment, carrying long after the moment has passed. Forgiveness means putting the burden down. But how do you forgive when the wound feels too deep? Zen suggests beginning with small steps. First, acknowledge your pain without judgment. Say, "Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I feel angry." Denial only strengthens the fire. Second, see the impermanence of anger. Notice how it arises and fades, like waves on the ocean. Even when it feels endless, it shifts. Third, try practicing loving kindness. Meditation. Begin with yourself. May I be free from anger. May I find peace. Then extend slowly, even reluctantly, to the one who hurt you. May they be free from ignorance. May they find peace. You do not have to mean it at first. The practice itself begins to soften the chains. There is a saying, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal. The longer you hold it, the deeper the burn. Forgiveness is opening your hand and letting it fall. The person may never apologize. They may never change. But in releasing anger, you release yourself. You stop granting them free rent in your mind. You reclaim your inner space. And yet, anger is not the only emotion that chains us. Desire can be just as binding, just as consuming. That longing to be seen, to be loved, to be chosen, it can keep someone in your thoughts as powerfully as resentment can. Desire whispers, "If only they returned, if only they stayed, if only they loved me, then I would be whole." But Zen teaches that desire is a flame that never satisfies. The more you feed it, the more it burns. You may get what you desire, but soon another desire arises. It is endless. This is why Buddhism does not say desire is evil. It says desire is unreliable. It promises peace, but delivers restlessness. When you crave someone's presence, you chain your happiness to their choices, their moods, their attention. You give them the keys to your inner freedom. And so they stay in your mind, because your mind has built them into the gatekeeper of your happiness. To free yourself, you must see that true happiness cannot depend on another. It arises from within, from awareness, from presence. The Zen path does not tell you to suppress desire, but to see it clearly, to notice how it promises joy and delivers longing, to smile gently at its tricks and let it pass. When desire loses its disguise, its power weakens. The person who seemed essential becomes simply another passing form, like a wave on the sea. Still, whether anger or desire, shadow or karma, the practice always returns to awareness. You are not asked to fight your thoughts, nor to erase them, but to see them as they are. Clouds, waves, ripples, echoes, none permanent, none defining. The moment you stop identifying with them, you step into freedom, and in that freedom, you may discover something unexpected. The person who haunted you becomes a teacher. The anger becomes a mirror. The desire becomes a lesson. Each thought becomes an invitation to return to the present. This is the transformation Zen offers not escape, but awakening. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And so, too, the thoughts that torment you will fade. But only if you stop feeding them with resistance, with clinging, with anger, with desire. Let them pass as they must. Let the river flow. Let the sky remain vast. When you truly practice this, you realize something extraordinary. The people who live in your mind are not enemies. They are guides, pointing you to the very places within you that need light. And when you meet them with awareness, compassion, and release, you find that you were never imprisoned at all. A cage was only made of thoughts. And thoughts are clouds, always drifting, never lasting. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, are you still carrying someone on your shoulders long after they left the river? When grief takes root, it spreads through the mind like ivy creeping across an old wall. It clings tightly, weaving into every crack, covering every surface, until all you can see is its green shadow. The face of the person you lost, the sound of their voice, the shape of their absence. These return again and again, and no matter how much you tell yourself to let go, the memory stays. It is as if the heart refuses to believe what the mind already knows. They are gone, and yet they are still here, haunting your inner world. Zen Buddhism teaches us that grief itself is not the enemy. To grieve is to love, and to love is to feel the ache of impermanence. The problem arises when grief turns into clinging, when we replay the loss endlessly, when we clutch the memory so tightly that it suffocates our present. Imagine holding onto a photograph until the paper crumbles in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it disintegrates. In the same way, clinging to grief only deepens the wound. But Zen does not demand that you forget. It does not ask you to erase the person from your heart. Instead, it invites you to transform your relationship with the memory. Rather than a chain that binds, the memory can become a bridge, a way of honoring, of learning, of awakening. The face that lingers in your mind can shift from tormentor to teacher. One Zen story tells of a master who lost his son. A disciple found him weeping and was shocked. "Master," the disciple said, "you teach us that all things are impermanent, that clinging brings suffering. Why do you cry? The master wiped his tears and replied, because I loved him. In that simple answer lies the heart of Zen. Pain is not denied. Emotion is not rejected, but it is seen for what it is, an expression of love, of impermanence, of the human experience. When you think of the one you lost, notice the texture of the thought. Is it soft, bringing a bittersweet smile? Or is it sharp, stabbing you with regret and longing? If it is sharp, it means clinging is at work. You are not only remembering, they are alive in your mind, as if the story could still change. This is where suffering grows. But if the thought is soft, if you allow it to flow through you like a river, it nourishes rather than destroys. This is the difference between grief that awakens and grief that imprisons. To move from prison to awakening, Buddhism offers the practice of presence. Each time the memory arises, breathe into it. Do not fight it. Feel it fully. Let the tears fall if they must, but then return to the present. Notice your breath. Notice the sound around you. Notice the life still flowing in this moment. In doing so, you honor the past without being trapped in it. You give space for both love and freedom to coexist. Another practice is gratitude. When the face of the lost one appears, instead of asking, why are they gone? Try whispering, thank you for the time we shared. This small shift changes the energy of the thought, from grasping to gratitude, from torment to tenderness. Gratitude does not erase grief, but it softens it. It turns the sharp edges into a smooth stone. You can carry without bleeding. And yet, grief often hides another layer: guilt. You may think, I should have done more. I should have been there. I should have said what was left unsaid. These thoughts circle endlessly, keeping the person alive in your mind through regret. But Zen asks, can the past be changed by guilt? Does holding on to regret honor them? Or does it only deepen your suffering? To heal, you must release the illusion that guilt can rewrite the story. It cannot. What it can do is teach you. Let the regret become a vow. If you regret not speaking more kindly, vow to speak kindly now. If you regret not spending time, vow to give presence to those around you now. In this way, guilt transforms into growth, and the person's memory becomes a source of wisdom rather than torment. The Zen saying reminds us, do not seek the water of life in the ashes of the past. When you cling to what is gone, you are drinking ashes. But when you learn from it, honor it, and release it, you discover that the water of life is here, in this breath, in this step, in this moment. Still, even as grief transforms, the mind returns again and again to what was. Why? Because we resist impermanence. We tell ourselves, this love, this bond, this presence, it must last forever. But impermanence is the very nature of all things. Denying it only deepens suffering. Accepting it opens the door to peace. The cherry blossom is beautiful, not despite its short life, but because of it. Its fragility makes it precious. In the same way, every relationship, every moment, is precious precisely because it will not last. When you see this, the person who lingers in your mind shifts. They are no longer a ghost chaining you to the past. They are a blossom that bloomed in your life, beautiful because it was temporary. The memory becomes light instead of weight, fragrance instead of burden. This does not mean you will never think of them again. Of course you will, but the quality of the thought changes. It becomes a gentle visitor, not an unwelcome invader. It becomes a reminder of love, not a source of torment. This is the freedom Zen offers, not forgetting, not erasing, but transforming. To help this transformation, try a meditation with the metaphor of the river. Close your eyes and imagine your mind as a flowing river. The person appears as a stone dropped into the water. At first, there is turbulence, waves, splashes, ripples. You may feel overwhelmed, but do not fight the disturbance. Simply watch. Slowly, the river continues flowing. Either the stone settles into the riverbed, becoming part of the whole, or it is carried away downstream. In time, the water smooths again. This is what happens when you allow grief to flow naturally. It integrates or it fades. But either way, the river of your life continues. So when grief returns, do not see it as failure. See it as another wave, another ripple. Allow it, feel it, let it flow. In time, it will soften. And in its softening, you will find peace. A paradox lives here. The more you try to hold on to someone in your mind, the faster they slip away. The more you allow them to drift naturally, the more gently they remain, like a fragrance carried on. The wind. This is the strange mercy of impermanence. It takes, but it also teaches. It ends, but it also awakens. And so, the question is not, how can I stop thinking of them? But, how can I allow their presence in my mind to guide me toward freedom? When obsession hides behind memory, it disguises itself as love, as loyalty, as duty. You tell yourself that thinking of them constantly means you care deeply, that holding their image proves you have not forgotten. But Zen invites you to ask, does this remembering bring peace, or does it bring torment? If the thought feels heavy, if it weighs on your chest and steals your breath, then it is not love. It is grasping. Love is a flame that warms. Grasping is a fire that burns. The difference is everything. Many people live as prisoners of their memories. They sit in rooms filled with silence, yet their minds echo with conversations long past. They walk in the present, yet their eyes see only ghosts of the past. And so the person they lost through breakup, betrayal, or death continues to dominate their life as if nothing has changed. This is the great trick of the mind. It convinces you that memory is reality, but memory is only shadow. To confuse shadow for truth is to live half alive. Buddhism teaches that when obsession arises, the way forward is not to erase, but to transform. The thought will come. You cannot stop it, but you can change how you meet it. Instead of tightening your chest, soften. Instead of grasping, open. Each time their face appears, breathe. Smile gently. Whisper, this too is impermanent. Do not fight the thought. Do not feed it either. Let it pass like clouds across the sky. There is a Zen saying, you cannot stop the birds from flying overhead, but you can stop them from building a nest. In your hair, thoughts are the birds. You cannot prevent them from appearing, but you do not need to let them build a nest. If you feed them with craving, if you stroke them with anger, they build, and soon the nest becomes heavy, tangled, impossible to ignore. But if you simply watch them pass, they keep flying, and the sky remains open. The path of freedom is paved with practice. Mindful observation, compassionate inquiry, letting go, redirection, loving kindness. All these are not ideas, they are practices. Each time you meet the thought with awareness, you strengthen your freedom. Each time you meet it with clinging, you strengthen your chains. Slowly, gently, over days and weeks, the balance shifts. What once enslaved you becomes your reminder to return to presence. There was once a monk who owned a simple porcelain teacup. Every morning he held it with care, admiring its smooth surface, its delicate shape. One day, another monk asked, "Why do you treat this old cup as if it were treasure?" The monk replied, "Because in my heart, the cup is already broken." In this way, he enjoyed the cup fully each day, without fear of loss. And when the day finally came that the cup shattered, he smiled. He had been preparing all along. This story holds the secret to freeing yourself from obsessive thoughts. The person who lingers in your mind, the memory that haunts you, the face that will not fade, see them, has already broken. already gone. Not in despair, but in truth. Everything you love is fragile. Every bond is temporary. When you accept this, you can hold them lightly. You can remember without clinging, care without burning, love without chains. The paradox is this: the more you try to keep them, the faster they slip away. The more you accept their impermanence, the more peacefully they remain. Not as tormentors, not as captors, but as gentle echoes in your vast awareness. In this shift, obsession dissolves into compassion, memory dissolves into wisdom, and pain dissolves into awakening. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And so, too, the shadow obsessive thought fades when you stop clinging to it as permanent. The dawn always comes. I know the feeling of lying awake at night, your mind racing with worries that never stop. You turn the pillow, you close your eyes, you breathe deeply, but none of it matters, because the thought of that one person returns again and again, as if they own your very mind. This is the trap of identification with thought, the place where the mind convinces you that you are what you think. And when the thought is filled with longing, anger, regret, or shame, you begin to believe that you are longing itself, anger itself, regret itself. It is like mistaking the echo for the voice, or the shadow for the body. Buddhism's revolutionary insight is that you are not your thoughts. Thoughts arise, linger, and dissolve. They come from memory, from habit, from hidden wounds, from unconscious impulses, but they are not you. To identify with them is to give them power they do not deserve. Imagine watching clouds drift across the sky. If you forget they are clouds, you might believe the sky itself is gray, heavy, storm-filled. But when you remember that the sky is vast and unchanging, you see the clouds for what they are: passing visitors. When a thought of this person arises, try this. Instead of saying, "I miss them," say, "There is a thought of missing." Instead of, "I cannot live without them," say, "There is a thought of needing." This small shift opens a space between you and the thought. Suddenly, you are no longer trapped inside it. You are watching it. You are the sky, not the cloud. Zen meditation trains this skill. Sit quietly. Breathe. Notice each thought as it arises. Name it softly. Thinking, and then return to the breath. Some days, the same face will appear hundreds of times. Each time, you bow inwardly to it, acknowledge it, and let it pass. At first, it feels impossible. But slowly, like a river carving stone, the practice changes you. You learn not to fall into the stream, but to watch from the shore. One master described it this way: learn to watch the river without being swept away by its current. When you do, the same thought that once pulled you into days of anguish now passes like a ripple. It is still there, but it no longer carries you. You remain steadied out of course. The mind will protest. It will shout. But this thought matters. This memory is truth. You cannot ignore it. The key is not ignoring, it is recognizing. The thought may contain information, a lesson, a reminder, but it is still a thought, not your identity. When you see this, you gain freedom. You no longer have to obey every command of the mind. And yet beneath this lies another illusion, the illusion of permanence. You believe the ache will never end, that the memory will never soften, that the face will never fade. This belief makes the thought heavy, unbearable. But Buddhism teaches impermanence as the very fabric of reality. No thought, no feeling, no memory lasts forever. Even the sharpest pain dulls with time. Even the brightest joy changes form. To forget this truth is to hand your mind over to despair. Think of the seasons. No matter how long the winter feels, spring comes. No matter how hot the summer burns, autumn cools the earth. Thoughts and emotions follow the same law. They may stay longer than you wish, but they are always moving, always shifting. When you believe they are permanent, you freeze yourself in suffering. When you remember impermanence, you find hope. The Zen masters repeat a simple phrase: this too will change. It is not comfort, it is reality. What feels unbearable today will not feel the same tomorrow. The one who haunts you will not always hold the same power. Even if they remain in memory, the sting will fade, the weight will lighten. And when you trust this truth, the grip of obsession weakens. You stop feeding the thought with fear. At the heart of this teaching is liberation. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are not permanent. You are the sky, vast and clear. The people who pass through your mind are clouds, sometimes dark, sometimes radiant, but always moving. When you live in this awareness, even the most persistent face becomes less frightening. It is only a cloud, and clouds never last. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, have you mistaken a passing cloud for the sky itself? Even the darkest night can trick you into believing it will never end. When a thought of someone returns again and again with the same intensity, the same sting, the same sharpness, it convinces you that this will be your forever. You begin to think, I will always feel this way. I will never be free. This ache is permanent. This is the illusion of permanence, one of the deepest traps of the mind. Buddhism reminds us that everything changes. No flower blooms forever. No wave remains on the shore. No cloud stays fixed in the sky. And yet, when pain strikes, we forget this truth. We believe our thoughts and feelings are frozen in stone. We imagine that the ache we feel today will be the same ache we feel tomorrow, next year, or even for the rest of our life. This belief gives the thought its power. It chains you to the ghost of someone who is already gone. But look closer. Think of a time when you thought you would never stop hurting, yet eventually the pain softened. Remember a heartbreak that once consumed you, but now feels distant, as if it happened to another version of you. This is impermanence in action. The truth is that even the sharpest grief dulls, even the deepest longing shifts, even the most persistent memory loses its grip. The only permanence is change itself. Zen asks us to watch this impermanence in real time. Sit with your thought of them. Notice the sensations it brings, the tightness in the chest, the heat in the face, the heaviness in the stomach. Now watch. Do they stay the same? Or do they rise and fall, fade and return, shift and soften? If you observe long enough, you see the truth. Nothing stays the same, not even the thought of them. The pain swells, then eases. The memory sharpens, then blurs. This observation is the beginning of freedom. A Zen master once said, when you cling, even joy turns to sorrow. When you release, even sorrow can turn to joy. What he meant is this: if you believe a feeling will last forever, you strangle it, you suffocate it, you feed it with fear. But if you trust impermanence, you give it space to flow. And in flowing, it loses its bite. The memory of them becomes like a river current. It moves, it shifts, it carries itself away. Think of a storm. When thunder cracks and rain pours, it feels endless. But no storm in history has ever lasted forever. Eventually, the clouds break, the sun returns, the earth dries. Your mind's storms are the same. They may rage for hours, days, months, but they always change. And when you trust this truth, you stop fearing the thought. You know it cannot chain you forever. This is why Zen often uses the image of the sky. The sky is vast, unchanging in its essence. Clouds pass, storms pass, sunshine passes, but the sky remains. Your awareness is the sky. Thoughts, memories, emotions, these are the clouds. They may cover the sky for a time, but they never alter. It's nature. When you identify with the storm, you suffer. When you identify with the sky, you are free. Now, consider the person who lingers in your mind. Perhaps you believe they will always matter this much, that their face will always sting, that their absence will always cut deep. But this is illusion. Their importance will shift. Their grip will fade. One day, you may even struggle to remember their voice. And when that day comes, you will see clearly what Zen teaches. Impermanence is not a curse, but a mercy. It allows wounds to heal. It allows memories to soften. It allows freedom to return. So the next time their face appears uninvited, whisper gently to yourself, "This too will change." Say it not as a wish, but as a fact. And as you repeat it, watch how the thought begins to lose its sharpness. It is no longer eternal, no longer unmovable. It is only another wave in the endless sea of change. And here lies the paradox. The more you cling, the longer the thought stays. The more you trust impermanence, the faster it fades. To let go is not to force forgetting, but to allow natural change. The thought dissolves not because you erased it, but because it cannot last by nature. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And so the memory that torments you will one day soften into light. The question is only whether you will allow it to pass, or whether you will chain yourself to it by believing it must stay. But sometimes, even after you accept impermanence, even after you practice awareness, the thought lingers with strange persistence. It feels different, deeper, almost sacred. This is where the seventh reason reveals itself. Spiritual assignment. Some people are not just random figures in our lives. They are catalysts, guides, mirrors, even without knowing it. Their presence in our mind is not punishment, but purpose. They are the ones who stir us awake. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what if their role in your mind is not to torment you, but to teach you? When someone refuses to leave your thoughts despite all the years, the distance, or even the silence between you, it may be more than attachment, more than karma, more than shadow. In Buddhism, there is the understanding that certain souls cross our path as part of a greater assignment. Not punishment, not accident, but an encounter written into the fabric of our journey. This is what Zen calls a spiritual assignment. The meeting of two beings whose connection holds the seed of awakening. Think of your life as a classroom. Some people enter briefly, like classmates who share a lesson and then disappear. Others stay longer, becoming lifelong friends, family, or partners. But a few enter as teachers disguised in unexpected forms. They may come in the shape of the one you loved and lost, the one who betrayed you, the one who inspired you, or even the one who wounded you most deeply. Their presence lingers not because of chance, but because they have brought you a lesson, so essential that your soul refuses to let go until it is learned. What if the person who occupies your mind is not your enemy, but your mirror? What if they are the catalyst that pushes you into a deeper knowing of yourself? Perhaps their presence forces you to confront your hidden fears. Perhaps their absence compels you to discover your own strength. Perhaps their love awakens your capacity for compassion. Perhaps their betrayal teaches you the necessity of forgiveness. Zen does not ask you to believe blindly in fate. It asks you to look honestly. If a thought persists, ask, what is it pointing me toward? What part of myself does it illuminate? What awakening waits beneath this longing? The answer may surprise you. The person you cannot forget may not be about them at all. They may be the key that unlocks something in you. Your resilience, your courage, your compassion, your awakening. There is a story told of a young monk who asked his master, "Why do I keep dreaming of the same man who hurt me years ago? Why does he return again and again, even when I try to forget?" The master smiled and said, "Because he has not finished his work within you. When you see him as your teacher, he will. owe, and leave. This is the essence of spiritual assignment. The mind clings not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, holding on until the deeper lesson is embraced. So instead of asking, how do I stop thinking about them? Ask, what are they here to show me? This shift changes everything. The thought becomes less of a chain, more of a compass. Each time they appear, it is a reminder to return to the lesson. Each time their face arises, it is an invitation to awaken. In this way, even your most persistent tormentor becomes your most precious guide. This perspective requires humility. It is not easy to see pain as a teacher. It is not easy to bow to the one who hurt you. But Zen invites us to see beyond the surface. The one who wounded you may be the one who reveals your capacity to forgive. The one who abandoned you may be the one who reveals your strength to stand alone. The one who loved you may be the one who reveals your infinite capacity for compassion. Each serves a role in your unfolding, whether they know it or not. Imagine you are climbing a mountain. Along the way, you encounter storms, cliffs, obstacles. Each one challenges you, tests you, strengthens you. Without them, the climb would be easier, but without them, you would never grow. The people who stay in your mind are like these obstacles. They shape you, refine you, awaken you. They are not blocking your path, they are the path. But the lesson of spiritual assignment is not meant to trap you. It is meant to free you. Once the lesson is learned, the thought softens. Once the purpose is embraced, the grip loosens. The face that haunted you becomes simply another step on your journey, honored and released. They remain part of your story, but they no longer dominate your mind. This is why Zen emphasizes awareness over avoidance. Do not run from the thought. Do not curse its persistence. Instead, listen, ask, learn, and when the lesson is clear, bow inwardly and let it go. In that bow lies liberation. And so the question changes. Instead of, why can I not forget them? The question becomes, what awakening is waiting for me here? And in that moment, the obsession transforms into opportunity. The person who would not leave your head becomes the very one who leads you back to your true self. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, are you resisting a teacher who has come in disguise? There's one hidden cause of suffering that most people never notice. We try to fight our own thoughts as if they were enemies. When someone lives in your mind, you may struggle against their presence, telling yourself, I must stop thinking about them. I must forget. But Zen Buddhism teaches that fighting the mind only strengthens its resistance. What you push away pushes back harder. What you resist persists. The way out is not to battle your thoughts, but to change your relationship with them. The first step is mindful observation. Imagine sitting by a stream. Leaves float by, carried gently on the current. Some are bright and beautiful, some are torn and withered, but you do not chase or reject them. You simply watch. This is how Zen asks you to meet your thoughts of that person. When the memory arises, do not jump in. Do not scold yourself. Simply notice, a thought is here. By treating the thought as a leaf on the stream, you no longer drown in it. You remain on the shore, steady and calm. This practice may seem small, but it transforms everything. The more you observe, the more space you create. The thought loses its sharpness. You begin to see that the pain was not in the thought itself, but in the clinging to it. When you loosen your grip, the thought passes more quickly, like a cloud, drifting across the sky. The second step is compassionate inquiry. Ask yourself gently, why does this person remain in my mind? What lesson is unlearned? What pain is unhealed? What truth is unacknowledged? Do not ask with judgment, but with kindness. Too often we scold ourselves. Why can't I move on? Why am I so weak? But Buddhism teaches that wisdom grows not from harshness, but from curiosity. Each thought is not a failure, but a message. Each memory is a teacher waiting to be heard. Perhaps the lesson is to forgive. Perhaps it is to discover your own worth. Perhaps it is to face the grief you avoided. By asking with compassion, you allow the hidden root to surface. And when it surfaces, healing begins. The third step is letting go through acceptance. Many believe letting go means forcing yourself to erase someone from your mind. But Zen teaches that letting go is not something you do. It is something that happens naturally when you stop clinging. Imagine holding sand in your fist. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. If you open your hand, the grains rest gently, and you feel no struggle. This is the essence of release. Do not force forgetting. Accept the presence of the thought, but loosen your grip on the meaning you have assigned to it. Over time, the thought settles naturally, like sand sinking to the bottom of the stream. The fourth step is redirection with intention. Every time their face appears in your mind, treat it as a bell of mindfulness. Instead of feeding the thought, use it as a reminder to return to the present. Breathe. Feel your feet on the ground. Listen to the sounds around you. Each time they appear, let them guide you back to now. In this way, the person who once imprisoned you becomes your unexpected teacher of presence. The thought that once hurt you becomes the doorway to awakening. This fifth step is the practice of loving kindness meditation. Sit quietly and repeat silently. May I be free from suffering. May I find peace. Then extend the same wish to them. May they be free from suffering. May they find peace. Finally, extend it to all beings. May all be free. May all find peace. At first, this may feel impossible. You may resist sending kindness to the one who hurt you. But slowly, the practice transforms the emotional charge. Anger softens into compassion. Desire loosens into generosity. Hatred dissolves into peace. This practice is not for them, it is for you. It frees your heart from the poison of resentment, and obsession. Zen also offers the wisdom of the stone in the river. Your mind is the flowing water. The person is the stone thrown into it. At first, the stone creates turbulence, splashes, waves, disturbance. But if the river keeps flowing, one of two things happens. The stone settles into the riverbed, becoming part of the whole, or it is carried away downstream. The key is not to stop the flow with resistance, but to allow the current of awareness to keep moving. In time, the disturbance fades and the river flows smooth again. When you practice these steps, the person who haunted you becomes less frightening. They become like a passing cloud, a floating leaf, a stone in a river. They are still there, but they no longer dominate your sky, your stream, your current. They become part of the vast flow of your life. This is the way Buddhism transforms suffering into liberation. It does not erase the visitor in your mind, but it teaches you to see them differently. They are no longer a ghost chaining you to the past. They are a teacher pointing you to freedom. They are not a punishment, but an opportunity. So, the next time you ask, why can I not stop thinking of them? Remember, the thought is not the enemy. The thought is the doorway. Step through it with awareness, compassion, and release, and you will find the vast space of freedom waiting on the other side. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what if the very thought you fear is the key to your awakening? When you begin to see obsessive thoughts not as enemies, but as teachers, your entire life changes. The person who lingers in your mind becomes less of a ghost and more of a guide. Their presence is no longer proof of your weakness, but evidence of your opportunity to grow. This is the quiet revolution Zen Buddhism offers, not escape from suffering, but transformation through it. Yet the question remains, how do you carry this practice into daily life? It is one thing to sit in meditation, watching thoughts float by like leaves on a stream. But when you walk into your office and see the colleague whose words still sting, or when you scroll through your phone and stumble upon the smiling face of your ex, the pain feels fresh again. Zen invites you not to separate practice from life. Each moment is the practice. Each encounter is the meditation. Imagine walking into a meeting and feeling the old tension rise in your chest. Your heart beats faster. Your mind races with memories of past conflicts. In that moment, instead of drowning in the story, pause, breathe, notice the sensations. Say silently, "There is anger," or "There is fear." By naming it, you create space. By breathing, you return to presence. This is mindfulness in action, not avoiding the trigger, but transforming it. Or picture sitting alone at night, and their face appears again. The familiar ache returns, the longing to check their social media, the temptation to dive back into the past. Instead of feeding the cycle, place your hand on your heart and whisper, "May I be free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. May I find peace." With this, the thought that once pulled you into hours of obsession becomes the bell that calls you to compassion. The ghost becomes your teacher. Another practice is to see every thought as an invitation to return to now. When their image rises, instead of spiraling into fantasy, redirect. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Notice the sounds in the room. Taste the air as it fills your lungs. Each time they arise, let them call you back to life as it is, not life as it was. Slowly, their presence becomes less of a chain and more of a doorway. It is also vital to remember the law of impermanence in your daily experience. When the memory feels endless, remind yourself, this too will change. Repeat it gently, like a mantra. Over time, you begin to trust the truth of change. You remember that the sharpest pain eventually softens. The storm always passes. No face, no thought, no memory is permanent. Some find it helpful to keep a physical reminder, perhaps a small stone in your pocket. Each time the thought returns, touch the stone. Let it remind you of the river. The stone causes turbulence at first, but the water flows on. You too will flow. The thought is not forever. The memory is not eternal. The river carries everything forward. And then there is gratitude. Gratitude may feel impossible when the wound is fresh, but it is one of the most powerful tools for freedom. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" whisper, "Thank you for the lesson. Thank you for the love, however brief. Thank you for the awakening you brought." Gratitude does not erase the pain, but it transforms it. It turns the memory from a weapon into a seed of wisdom. In time, as you practice awareness, compassion, letting go, redirection, loving kindness, and gratitude, something remarkable happens. The person who once haunted your every thought begins to fade, not because you forced forgetting, but because you no longer cling. Their presence becomes softer, like a cloud drifting across a vast sky. You can still see them, but they no longer block the sun. They no longer own your mind. And when this shift comes, you realize the true gift of Zen. The practice was never about them. It was always about you. They were the mirror, the catalyst, the teacher, but the awakening is yours. You learn that your peace does not depend on another. You discover that freedom is not in controlling thoughts, but in seeing through them. You understand that you are the sky, vast and unchanging, and they were only ever a passing cloud. This is the final transformation. From obsession to awakening, from suffering to freedom. The person who would not leave your mind becomes the doorway to discovering your true self. And once you walk through that doorway, you find a peace that no one can take from you. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, are you ready to let the visitor in your mind become your teacher? And in doing so, finally set yourself free?